Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, we hope you like what you hear. So, our podcast is for people that want to learn something new or make themselves a little bit better every day. Focus a lot on mindset, personal accountability, stoicism, controlling our emotions, making fact based, left brained, logical decisions, and, trying to manage our life in a productive way. So, in today's episode, we're going to talk through 7 tips to follow for a great life. Um, you know, we um, we all make choices in life, and the results of those choices impact how our life plays out. So, when we make choices, sometimes we like the results, sometimes we don't like the results of choices. So, if we like the results, we should continue to make the choices that led to those results. And if we don't like the results that we got, then we should make different choices. So at its core, it's that basic. There's a lot more to it than the way we just made it sound because we are emotional people. It's natural to have feelings and thoughts and competing priorities and all of those things. And in today's world, I would argue it's even more challenging. We've introduced social media. People spend a lot of time on screens, a lot less time with personal interaction now than there used to be. And that creates even more choices now for people. When you think about all the choices and the options you have around those choices, where do you eat and what do you eat when you get there? Do you eat at home? Do you go to a restaurant? If it's a restaurant, do you sit down? Is it a fast food restaurant? What do you order when you get there? Do you want healthy food? Do you want to indulge yourself? Who knows, right? You got to make all those choices. What do you spend your leisure time on? What do you like to do when you're not doing something for work or something that you have to do? Let's call it. You get to choose all of those things. There's millions of video games. There's millions of streaming services. There's all sorts of real world things that you can go out and do. You can go join a tennis league. You can go join a golf league. You can go on hikes. You can go kayaking. You can do all sorts of different things. Take a painting class. So you've got all those choices. Who do you spend your time with, right? That one's a huge one that impacts your life because who you spend your time with has a huge impact on how you think about the world, the activities you choose to partake in. I remember I was in college. Well, so taking a step back. So I'm not a drug user, never have been, just not my thing. It's not a judgment. It's just something I've never chosen to do. I've also never been drunk in my life, and not a judgment. It's just not for me. So it's never been, oh, I should stay away from it because I'll get real addicted to it. It just never, ever appealed to me. So when I was in college, it was before kind of the widespread mainstreaming of marijuana use. And I wound up in an apartment with some guys that I was playing baseball with, and there was marijuana, right? So they had a bong, and it was interesting because it seemed so foreign to me, but it was so normal to them. But it was also very obvious to everybody that it was not my thing, but it was their thing. So they went into a bedroom and did their thing and came back out because they didn't want to do it in front of me, which I don't care. Like, it didn't matter to me. That's your thing. It just wasn't my thing. Um, but point there is that was normal to them because they hung around with other people that did that. I was not normal to me because I didn't hang around people that did that in general. And again, not a judgment. I don't mean it in a negative way. It just, what the whole point is, who you hang around with heavily influences how your life goes. And you need to think about that when you're deciding who your friends are, who you want to spend your time with, who you take advice from, who is a mentor to you, who you look up to. Those things are important, right? Those things are important. So you've got all those choices. Decision fatigue can be a very real and legitimate thing. And again, some of those choices don't have a huge impact on your life. Should you get the spearmint gum or the juicy fruit gum? Doesn't have a huge impact on your life. Who you spend your time with has a huge impact on your life. What you do for a living has a huge impact on your life. Where you live has a huge impact on your life. So those are all choices that have bigger impacts than other things. But when you think about it, you should have some overarching principles that you use to make your decisions and how you manage your life. And that's the point of our episode today is we want to give you 7 tips based on our 52 years on the earth and 30 plus years of experience in the business world, being an adult, being in adult relationships, et cetera, that have worked for us, that make sense for us. And this is a lot through trial and error, by the way. So nobody's perfect. We certainly have screwed up thousands of things in our lives. So it's not preaching from a pulpit or being sanctimonious at all, because I tell people I failed my way to success, and that's absolutely the truth. People ask, how are you successful? And I'm like, because I've fucked up a lot of stuff. That's how I've become successful. And you got to have the backbone to take your shots and accept accountability when the shots don't work, and learn from those, apply those learnings to future endeavors, and make yourself a better person. So the rules that we live by are ones we're going to share with you. And I think they're pretty straightforward. They might not seem straightforward to you, but they do seem straightforward to us based on our life experience and how we think about the world. So let's jump into them now. Rule number one. And it's rule number one for a reason, because if you do this one thing, things will go really well for you and you'll be very happy in your life. Value relationships and experiences over material possessions. So that is very straightforward. We're not saying don't care about money. We're not saying don't plan to pay your rent. We're not saying don't save for retirement. We're not saying any of those things. But in your day-to-day existence, in your day-to-day activity, you should prioritize relationships and experiences over material possessions. Look, we've had nice cars. So we've had Porsches, we've had BMWs, we've had Acuras, blah, 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 blah. We've had a Lexus. I drive a Santa Fe right now, Hyundai Santa Fe, and we only have one car. So it doesn't make me good or bad. It just shows you that I've learned that having those things doesn't mean a goddamn thing. They don't make you happier. Is it cool to drive around in a Porsche? Sure, it's cool to drive around in a Porsche. It wears off real quick from our perspective. What doesn't wear off is meaningful relationships with the people that are close to you. That's your family, that's your friends, could be some people you work with that cross over into friendship. And those things are going to matter a hell of a lot more to you 10, 20, 30 years down the road than your car or your clothes or your shoes or your jewelry or your handbags or insert material possession here. They don't fucking matter. So prioritize relationships and experiences in your life. And when we talk about experiences, it could be something big. My wife and I, for our 15th anniversary, went to Puerto Rico. And we still remember that trip and talk about it. For our 30th anniversary, we went to Grand Cayman. And we still talk about that trip. And those were great experiences. They were awesome. It can be a walk. It can be a particular thing you did with your kids. I still think about like our kids participated in athletics, and we think about some of the fun experiences that we had with the people that we knew through athletics and through our kids. So those are the kind of things that make you the happiest in life. Those are the things that will resonate with you the most as you grow older. And the sooner you learn to prioritize those things in your life, the happier you're going to be. So that leads us directly into our second point, which is find a partner to share your life with. Nobody wants to go through life alone. It is not a good way to go through life. And look, it's very funny that I would be saying this because I am a person who likes to be alone a lot. I am definitely kind of a loner, and I've been that way since I was a kid. It was very interesting because I was accepted by all of the different groups, like at my high school, for example, because I played a lot of sports, so I was accepted by the athletes, but I wasn't just an athlete. I was in a lot of AP classes, so I was accepted by the kids that were smart and were planning for their future in terms of college and going to school. But I wasn't in that group. I was accepted by that group. I was student body president, so I was accepted by the kids that did government and kind of cared about the world and were trying to make the school better and all those things. But I wasn't in that group. So it's not hard for me to get accepted by people, but I prefer mostly to kind of be on my own. Now, with that said, I met my wife when I was 19 years old, and we've been together ever since. So we spent well over half of our lives together. I wouldn't trade that for anything. Having someone to share your life with is important. And we said partner on purpose because this doesn't matter what your orientation is. It doesn't matter if you're gay. It doesn't matter if you're straight. It doesn't matter what you are. Doesn't matter how you live your life. Whoever that partner is, find someone to share your life with. It has a multiplier effect on the happiness that you have in your life. So that one is very, very important. And it's not always going to be rainbows and unicorns. Um, I'm fortunate that my wife and I have always communicated with each other very well. So our relationship has never really been in a terrible spot. There's times where we've been happier than other times. There's times where things have worked better than other times, but we've never really run any risk of kind of running the boat into the reef and sinking it. Um, so you got to be willing to participate in that relationship in a meaningful way, because the other person should get as much out of it as you are getting out of it. And that ebbs and flows. There's times where I've needed a lot more from my wife and she has given, and she's needed a lot. There's been times where she's needed a lot more and I've given. And that's a good relationship. That's how it should be. But it's not always going to be equal. It's not always going to be linear, because there's people are at different stages in their life, and they're going through different things in their life, and they need different things out of those relationships. But we can tell you, having a person to share your life with is the way to go. Terribly, terribly important. So you got to go out and meet people. You got to talk to people. You got to figure out how you're going to make that work. Don't sit and play video games and text and do social media and isolate yourself from the real world. Get out in the real world, interact with people, find someone to share your life with. Terribly important. Number 3, always continue to learn. That could be formal education. That could be college. That could be technical training if you're like in a job with trades. It can be just real world life experience. How do people interact with each other? How do they receive things when you say it this way versus when you say it that way? When you use this word versus that word? When you say it in this tone of voice versus that tone of voice? Learning is terribly, terribly important. You should be curious. You should always be trying to be better at what you do. No matter what it is, you should be learning about whatever it is you do to try to get better at it. So always continue to learn. That curiosity is what makes life worth living. It's actually not getting to the destination of having X amount of dollars in the bank or holding a specific role or title in the world. I will guarantee you that once you achieve that goal, you're going to go, what's next? I remember when I was a kid, I had set myself a goal, and I said I would just be set. I would be so set if I could just earn $50,000 a year. Well, I was 24 and I was earning $50,000 a year. And it was like, well, fuck, what do I do now? Right? So that's not the way to go. Focus on learning, focus on improving, focus on getting better. You'll be amazed at how far that takes you and how much you'll enjoy that process. Number 4, focus on what you have control over. We talk about that on this channel over and over again because it's something we should talk about over and over again. Usually when you have anxiety, usually when you have stress, usually when you have concerns, it's because you're worried about something you don't have control over. Or you're worried about something you do have control over and you're just not willing to take control of it. You're not willing to take the actions that are necessary to take control of it. And it's not always fun. If you've got, like with my work right now, it is super challenging. We're navigating some very dangerous waters with my work. And it does not make every day fun, but you've got to get up and face it. You've got to get up and tackle it. And it's the only way out is through. So if you focus on what you have control over, it will stop those feelings of stress and anxiety, because it's one of two things. Either you're worried about something you don't have control over, or you know you have control over something and you're refusing not to take control over it, and that's causing anxiety. So if you focus on what you have control over, you'll be amazed at how much better, like just your mental health and your calmness and your overall demeanor will be. Number 5, appreciate the value of a hard day's work. Nothing wrong with leisure time. There's nothing wrong with having a good time. There's nothing wrong with spending time on things that you like to do. But we are happiest when we're achieving, when we're striving towards something, and it doesn't need to be a job. When I say a hard day's work, I'm not necessarily talking about something you're getting compensated for. But let's say you love gardening. It's worth all the work you have to put in to deliver yourself a really beautiful garden 6 months down the road. But that work, you're going to feel so satisfied because you did that. You put in the effort. You did the work to get that done. So I'm not necessarily talking about just your career. It's fine if you pour yourself into your career, but you've got to learn the value of a hard day's work. And I think there's surveys now that say kids want to grow up and be influencers, largely because they don't have to work for a company. And that's okay. You can be an entrepreneur, you can be an influencer, but it's not a way out. It doesn't mean you're absolved of having to do hard work, because life is hard work. And the sooner you learn that, sooner you learn to value that, the better off you're going to be. Number 6, learn to deal with rejection. There's loads of it. We just did a video or an episode this week on how to deal with rejection. And it's something everyone faces. And if you look at people in the world, the people that are most successful are generally the ones who, after they're rejected, pick themselves up, take the learnings that they got from that rejection, and are internally focused on what could I do different to deliver a different outcome. So they learn to deal with that rejection. They take those learnings, apply them to future endeavors, and it helps them become successful. So life is tough. You're going to get kicked in the teeth every once in a while. That's how it goes. You've got to learn to deal with that. You got to learn to stand up, and using the boxing terminology, take a standing 8 count because you got knocked down, and then get back in the ring and keep fighting. So you got to learn to deal with rejection. It's going to happen. There's no way around it. It happens to everybody. I don't care who you are. And the sooner you learn to deal with it, the better off you're going to be and the better life you're going to have for yourself. And then last thing to remember is things always change. So if things are going good, enjoy it and do whatever you can to continue that goodness, because it will change at some point. And if you don't like what's going on, if things are tough and you're kind of really struggling, fight your way through it, because things will change. It's not going to be that way all the time. It's a temporary situation. Things never stay the same forever. When you just look at our country, right? Our country started with 13 colonies on the East Coast, and now it spreads the entire nation. It's 50 states. It's 335 million people. Things are very different here now than they were. Even within our country, you think about the changes that have happened in our lifetime. I'm old enough to remember no cell phones, no Wi-Fi. If you wanted to write a paper, you had to go to the library and look things up in a index card system and go find the book, do the work, put together your notes for your bibliography and your quotations. There was no Google, there was no anything. And people older than me can remember the days before television, right? So things change all the time. And you need to embrace that change, learn to adapt your life to that change for the best chance of success. When you think about Darwin, it always gets conflated that Darwin's survival of the fittest is only the strong shall survive. It's actually not what Darwin's conclusion was. Darwin's conclusion was the species that are most adaptable to change, to suit their environment, are the ones that continue. And you want to be part of the group that continues. So remembering that things always change, embracing that change, and figuring out how you're going to deal with that change to build the life you want is terribly, terribly important. So that's our episode for today, guys. Those are tips or thought processes that we use to manage our life. They've worked really well for us. They've allowed us to be in a long-standing marriage. They've allowed us to raise great kids. They've allowed us to have a lot of success in the business world and to be personally satisfied with how our life has gone. So hope you guys find those useful. Hope you're able to put them to use in your life as well. Love to hear what you think about those or your experiences with any of these rules. And if you have those thoughts, leave them in the comments for us. We'll always respond, and we love getting comments from listeners. So James always puts it up right over here. Don't forget to go to our website, saltygingertalk.com. We've got all of our podcast episodes available there. We've got a newsletter that we publish every weekday that you can subscribe to on our website, and we've got links to all of our social media accounts on there as well. And also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. We sure appreciate you checking out the channel. Hope you guys have a great week, and we will see you next time.